Hey, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day. This is Tabitha Jean, and I am coming to you today with a video inspired by Gigi Young, Blood Oaths, episode 8. I will post it in the comments after. Also, it's about dark magic and healing childhood traumas. So, I wanted to share this. I was going to write it, but geez, I feel like I'm writing a book. And this might be a little bit long. And if that's the case, go grab your snacks, get comfy. Let me share a story with you. Trying to think. I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, they know snippets here and there, but nobody really knows what my childhood, this aspect of my childhood. So, I was born. Well, obviously, I was born. Duh. I'm a little nervous, okay, guys, because I don't really share all this. Um, I was when I was born. My biological mother, she gave birth to me, and I had a younger half brother and half sister. And my earliest memories go back to about 3 years old, I think, 2.5, 3 years old. And I vaguely remembered her. And then she was just gone. She was just gone. I remember asking about her, asking for her. I don't remember the words that were said. I remember angry feelings. So I learned not to ask. I remember wanting a mommy, but I never asked for my mommy. I remember my stepdad being involved with a woman. I remember her name was Sugar. I remembered she beat me. I remember, living in or being in a shack. Water was all around us, snapping turtles. It was just me and my younger brother and sister. I remember trying to change my sister's diaper and giving her milk. Then I remember being in a home, a really big home with a bunch of strangers, being really scared, but also at the same time, I was just a little smartass defiant. I remember refusing to let them help me, demanding to see my brother and sister. I remember being scared of the loud motor thing outside, which later I learned was a riding lawnmower, but I didn't know what that was. And then I remember being with my grandparents, my dad's parents, stepdad, but I didn't know he was my stepdad then. I remember being with them, waiting for my dad. He was in prison. My brother and sister were in a foster home. Like all these weird things, okay? And I'm sharing this because I want you guys to get a sense of this is how chaotic my life was growing up. And I'll come back and share what I've learned as an adult to make some sense of these things. I remember different periods of my life. I mean, we typically, I remember going and getting the cheese and the powdered milk from the, was it welfare or what do they call that? The government assistance. We lived on food stamps. I would take food stamps into the convenience store and buy penny candy, get the change, so that my step-parents could buy cigarettes or put gas in the car. A lot of times A lot of times. We literally drove up to the gas station as the car died, and they would put $2 gas in. That was normal. That was our normal. Christmas, Thanksgiving, a box of food would show up. Christmas gifts were usually gifts that showed up from complete strangers. Never knew who they were from, never knew who to say thank you to. We moved. Goodness. Let's see. So there was Sutherland, what I remember. Sutherland, and then Medford, and then Reading, and then the one house in Sutherland, then the other house in Sutherland. Then there was the other house in Sutherland with the arena. Then there was the Sulphur Water house in Sutherland. There was the Spiral Staircase house in Sutherland. There was the Condemned house in Coos Bay. There was the Out of the Way house in Coos Bay, or North Bend. Then there was the Rundown house in Vancouver. So what, 12 times that I can remember? 12 times we moved in. Oh no, there was another house in Sutherland. The trailer house where the cat got killed. So 13. I knew I was missing one in the middle. I think 13 times. So, and it was literally like I would come home from school, the house would be packed up. Like, we didn't have a phone. We barely had TV. And it was like, seriously, I would just come home and everything would be packed up. Off to a new house, off to a new school, off to a new. That was my norm. The other thing that was normal would be I would walk into a room and there would be an empty rocking chair that would be steadily rocking on its own consistently, and not like somebody just left the chair. I know the difference. It continued. My stepdad would be sitting on the other side of the room looking at the chair, and I just learned, move along. We would have we always had cats, we always had dogs. Some of the cats we had were feral. He'd just bring them home. They'd just show up. And ironically, these cats, one in particular, she always brought me gifts. Me. I'd wake up with a dead bird by my head. I'd wake up with a dead mouse by my head. The worst was when she brought the snake home, only it wasn't dead. Yeah. But I'm trying to think what else. We were, well, not we. His mom and dad were very religious. She was a licensed pastor, but she didn't practice. So we did Bible studies together, and it was like these book Bible studies, and I would help her assemble those so she could send out to people. even though my stepdad was super controlling and super domineering, for whatever reason, he always let me go to church. I always wanted to go to church. And it didn't matter what church, and he didn't care what church. But if I wanted to go to church, I could go to church as long as I could find a way there and I will find a way back. And it was kind of interesting in that somehow, some way, someone always was there. Whether it was the church itself that sent a school bus, or a neighbor, or a friend of a friend, I was always able to go to church. So I had a very strong um, Christian religious foundation. I went to Pentecostal churches, I went to Protestant churches, I went to Lutheran churches, I went to Catholic churches. Mm, Later in life, I went to a mosque. Um, but I just had a lot of different, because to me, the connectedness wherever I went, that feeling of connectedness was the same to me. It wasn't what they were teaching or what their practices were. Some of them were different. They were more subdued. They were more. Some of them were all dancing in the aisles, but regardless of what physical um, the physicalness of the church was, or even the words, it was more the energy. And that was the energy, that connectedness. That's what called to me. And somehow it always worked out. Now, my step parents didn't go, and my half brother and sister went with me a few times, but then they stopped. But it was my thing. And that was one thing I did have freedom in. I didn't have freedom anywhere else, but I did have freedom there. And, anyways, all of this, you know, um, I knew that my grandmother used to pray that bad things would happen if we weren't in her physical proximity. My stepmother's dad, at one point, I think I was about 9 years old, had said, "I don't understand why they baby you so much. You're not even related to them by blood." I didn't know at that point. I didn't know I wasn't his. I just knew that my mom was gone. I remembered that, but I didn't know he wasn't my father. And then his two older children came into my life. I met them, and they helped me find birth records and other things that was like, okay. Then when I was a teenager, um, we always lived out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, we didn't have a phone. We barely had TV. We didn't watch the news. We remember what my stepmom's soap operas, wrestling. That was pretty much what we watched, if we watched TV. We always lived out in the middle of nowhere. Usually a house that was run down. My stepdad, he had. I'm trying to share the story between when I was a kid growing up and how I saw it then, and then now what I know. And it's hard not to jump into what I know now thing. What I know now thing is, well, as a kid, I didn't know what it was. All right. Like literally, you never knew moment to moment who you were going to be engaging with. sometimes he was really fun and kind and nice. I mean, like, he could be so cool when he wanted to, or that was my perspective as a kid. Most of the time, I was on eggshells. And, like, when I became a teenager, I could be a half a mile away from our house and I could feel the energy. And I so didn't want to go home because I knew something bad was going on. I didn't know what, but I could feel it that far away. Like driving my car, it would hit me out of nowhere. And this overall sense of just dread and just anxiety and, but where else did I have to go? Nowhere. So I went home. And sometimes it was the house was packed up and we were moving. Sometimes he was just in a rage. In a rage. I learned at a very young age to try to be a buffer. He would get so mad. He would hit, he would beat. Let's put it this way. My brother, he beat my brother so bad that it was days. I want to say a week. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was days. He couldn't sit at the dining room table because his butt hurt that bad. And I remember the time my sister couldn't eat. She was sick, but he didn't believe her. And, the rule was whatever was put in front of you, you had to eat it. Didn't matter what it was, you had to eat it. And sometimes it was things like possum. Sometimes we were lucky and we had deer meat, vegetables. It didn't matter. You ate it. It was on your plate. You ate it. Well, she was sick. And so that's the rule. So she ate it and she threw up. And after he slammed her face in the plate and cussed her out and told her how he always hated her, he could never stand her, she was just always a big crybaby, he made her eat it after. I tried to be a buffer. I tried to shield my brother and sister. I tried to, because my step parents were often gone. I don't know where they were. Neither one of them worked. I don't know what they were doing. We would come home from school. We'd ride the bus home, and I tried to get my brother and sister to do whatever our chores were, or to at least not tear things up. And I would bribe them and whatever. I would just do whatever I could think of. But when it came to, like I said, sometimes my dad would come home, everything would be fine. But those were rare moments. Most of the time, it was it was volatile. You never knew what you were going to get. So, what I learned later, I met my biological mother, and my stepdad's sister. She and I stayed in communication. Well, even after I left, there was still a pull. I don't know how to describe it. There was still a pull when my step family needed money. So weird. All of a sudden, I'd feel really compelled to call them, and I'd hear the story how they didn't have food or they didn't have money for water or whatever. And ironically, I just happened to have some money, and I'd feel very strongly compelled to give to them. Now, I'm not saying like I felt sorry for them. It was like a compulsion. I don't know how else to say it. And even at the time, I knew what I was doing was stupid. Here I am, a young adult. I mean, I finally broke away. I'm trying to build a life, trying to do better, make more for myself. But yet, I can't stop myself. I couldn't. And this went on until he died. It just, I could not say no. Well, it was like right after he died, I actually connected with my biological mother, and she said, shed some light on the story. And then also his sister, she's shed light on the story. And essentially, what it's come to my understanding to be is his mom, the licensed pastor, the one who got me involved in church. Well, she actually was a witch. She practiced witchcraft, which, was black magic. He was a warlock, so he also practiced. And the blood magic part of this whole video that comes into play because Gigi Young's video is what triggered my memory of these things. And the healing the dark shadow aspect of it for me was growing up, I always felt ostracized. I always felt unwanted. I never understood why they had me in their life or why they kept me, because it wasn't their blood. And ironically enough, I had people, I learned this from my aunt, people wanted me. They knew the story, they knew I wasn't his. My aunt and my uncle wanted to take me, and he wouldn't let me go. There were other family members who wanted me, and he wouldn't let me go. Yet I was never brought in to the dark magic aspect of the family. Apparently, my siblings were. They're his blood. I'm not. And I was never brought in. But what I really think, he was bipolar schizophrenic. He should have been medicated. He definitely had split personalities because trying to remember, like, we would move. I told you how many times we moved. And there were times like he would sign, was it Terry something? And he was left-handed. But when he was in that alternate personality, he wrote with his right hand, and the writing was completely different. And maybe those were the times when he was a kind person. The black magic, the blood oath video that Gigi did, my understanding now, they had some kind of connection with lower level entities. Our life was chaotic. It was super stressful. For me being an empath, it really caused me to pull back within myself and anticipate everybody's needs as a means of survival. So I withdrew and I stepped forward in anticipation. And as soon as that was attended to, I pulled back again. So what I really think happened, he didn't have to keep me. He didn't have the we barely got by. I used to think it was because I was just another part of the welfare duck. I don't really think that's it anymore. I think I was the light. I think that's why they didn't bring me into it. I remember when I think I was in the fifth grade. I had this weird thing. I wanted to read every book in the library. I'm like, I read a lot of the books. I loved reading. Well, I got into the witchcraft books. So I brought some books home from the library on witchcraft. And when I brought them into the house, he freaked. Literally, I couldn't even have the books in the house. Literally, the books had to be left outside and returned the next day. I think that they sheltered me. I think that maybe I was their physical hope. I had some things happen to me growing up as a kid. Like the teacher, I remember fourth grade, I turned in on my homework and I would tear my papers out of the spiral bound notebook. Well, she didn't want the little fringes on the edge. And I don't even know what she said or how she said it, but it devastated me. And I went home from school in tears and I told him I had to redo all of my homework. And he was right there, and talked to the teacher and came back and explained to me, no, that's not, you don't have to redo your homework. It's taken care of. You just from now on make sure you don't turn in your papers with the fringes on. It was weird. It was a dynamic, like I said, it was super abusive. It was physically abusive. It was mentally abusive. It was very emotionally abusive. I grew up very traumatized. I grew up, like I said, pulling away, hiding myself, anticipating everybody, trying to be the peacekeeper, but at the same time, always hiding because I didn't want the light to be on me. And yet, in those moments where I needed, I mean, he was vicious in protecting me, seriously vicious in protecting me. Not protecting, how do I say this? Because I was molested by one of his friends as a child. And when it came out, yeah, he wanted to kill him. Yet, nobody ever explained to me it wasn't my fault, that I didn't do anything wrong. I was a little girl. I think I was 6 or 7. No idea what sex was. I had no idea what any of that was. Just knew I missed my mom. I knew it didn't belong. I felt out of place, and his friend was nice to me. Anyways, when he found out, though, like I said, he wanted to kill this person. Like, literally. He had his gun. He went hunting. Um, but yeah, nobody ever. I guess because of maybe what they were involved in, that part of their sensitivities was gone. All I could think is like I said, they kept me pure from what they were involved in. And the healing the inner child part comes from listening to the Blood Oath video. I've been doing a lot of what they call shadow work. Um, as certain feelings come up, as certain memories come up, as certain things that I've spent a lot of time tramping down, okay? But as things trigger them, rather than judging them, I'm accepting them, just observing them. And actually this actually came up for me a couple days ago. I didn't know it was going to be this. I mean, a couple days ago, I've got notes. I keep a journal now. I never journaled in my life. Never kept a diary. Lately, I do. I journaled about this, and I didn't know then. I just it was a flicker on my consciousness, and I made a note, and I put a question mark by it. I guess today I'm ready to hear the message because again, I'm watching this video, and it's like light bulbs going off. And part of the healing is forgiving, recognizing that I really do think they kept me isolated, not to hurt me, not intentionally. I think that's the only way they could think of to protect me, because I think that they were deep in a mess. And it was a mess that drained their life force, their light. And I don't know what kind of oaths or bonds or connections that they made, that they brought in their own children as well. For whatever reason, I was protected. I wasn't his blood. And I could be the light, I guess, that they forgot existed. I don't know. I just know that, my grandmother and my stepfather are gone. I hope that my understanding the sacrifice that they made with me, they kept me when they couldn't afford me, literally. They made sure I had what I needed to survive. They provided as best they could. I mean, I always said, if nothing else, they always made sure I had food to eat, a roof over my head. May not have been the greatest. Gotta tell you, it wasn't fun living in the house with the sulfur water. You ever drink powdered milk made with sulfur water? That is nasty. But I did, and I'm alive. So they easily could have put me off on somebody else, but they didn't. And I hope that that means wherever their souls are, whatever prices that they paid, maybe my light helps them find their way to their light. That is my hope. And I give them love, forgiveness, my blessings. Anyways, I wanted to share this with you because when it's like a lot to write, and I don't know if words actually would really convey the magnitude of the meaning to me. I hope I did. I don't know if I did well or not. The other thing is opening yourself up. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into when I went and watched this Blood Oath video. I'm wanting to understand. I'm growing spiritually, and I want to understand what I can of the whole. So, what I should be aware of, what I should look out for, what I should strive for, how can I better myself? And through bettering myself, how can I help better others? And that's my motivation. That's part of the motivation between, for doing the shadow work, for looking at that spiritual mirror of seeing the reflection of what am I giving to the world? How am I showing up in this world? What kind of human being am I being to others? Am I a light? Am I love? Am I acceptance? Am I tolerance? What do I bring to the table to help others? And so the shadow work to me is really important because that's the reflection of me in this world. It's also the reflection of all of me, the inner child, the hurts, the wounds, and making time, making space to acknowledge them instead of hiding them. I didn't know what to do before, so I boxed it up big time. Like brick walls and Fort Knox type lock and key to protect myself. And learning to strip away those layers, allowing things to come to the surface so that I can acknowledge them and say, okay. And some things require forgiveness, blessings, release. Some things require me going back to that child in me, that time, and giving the hug that I so desperately needed, I never got. Giving the love, giving the patience, the time, and reassuring that child in me that you're gonna be okay. I know it's hard. I know that's hard, but you're gonna be okay. And giving those words that I never received. Now I understand they weren't capable. It wasn't because I was odd or I wasn't there. They just couldn't. And maybe in a way, they fed off of my light. But that's okay. I forgive that. If that's the case, I forgive that. Because if my light gave them hope, that right there, that's awesome. Anyways, I wanted to share this. I know this is long. I hope this resonates with somebody out there in some way. Just to realize that what seemed really crappy, maybe there's a bigger purpose. You needed to experience that. Maybe your role in your suffering is so much more powerful in the light you brought in spite of your hurt. So I hope you guys have a great day, and gotta pull myself together and go get groceries because life goes on. All right. Look forward to hearing your comments and your feedback, and if you can relate with any of this, if any of this resonates, I'd love to hear your stories. Um, and I'm sure as I remember more, because I've boxed up a lot, but as I remember more, I will share more. And in the meantime, I look forward to hearing what your perspectives are. Thanks. Take care. Bye, y'all.